Well, you may notice I'm back in flannel again. This is Ohio in April, and 2 days ago it was 80 degrees. Today it's closer to 45, and I just thought I would take a quick walkthrough of what's happening since the last time I did a video. The battery went out in my computer while I was trying to stain the face of this instrument, and the irony is that the stain didn't take it all. And I realized that this is a veneer. It's a very thin, it's a razor thin veneer, and there's a sealer coat on the veneer that actually kept the stain from sinking in at all. The only place the stain sunk in at all was a couple places where I had inadvertently, unknowingly gone past that level of sealer when I sanded. So then I went back, I sanded again, and I tried to get all the sealer off the face of the instrument. Once again, the only reason I'm doing this is because the face of the instrument was already destroyed when I got it by all the glue that was dumped on it. And I thought, well, I'll just stain it up again. And, piece of cake, right? Well, nothing is ever as simple as it ought to be. So as I'm staining, as I'm sanding, and I have to say, I confess, I got a little aggressive because it's been a long time working on this project. And I decided that as I sanded, I discovered that there were a couple places the grain of the underlying wood underneath the veneer is actually running at an opposite direction. So I have places here, here, and here where I've actually gone all the way through that razor thin top coat. When they say these have a spruce top, you have to understand that it doesn't count. Okay, this is actually a plywood top of some kind. The thing doesn't sound bad. The instrument isn't a piece of junk automatically. But if a guitar or a mandolin or a similar instrument doesn't say it has a solid spruce top or a solid cedar top, then what you're getting is a razor thin coating of veneer over plywood, and that's what I have here. And I've gone through to the plywood 2 different places. My hope is that when I do the dark stain, that it'll stain all of it equally now, since it didn't do that before, trust me. I'm going to try a little bit of stain on this now with the video running, hopefully, and let you see how it goes. That said, I'm going to shut off for just a second and get a photograph of this before I mess it up any further. That photograph was for my webpage because I'm doing a blow-by-blow account of this project. I almost said disaster. It's not a disaster yet. It may turn out to be one. Once again, most of the people who do these kind of demonstrations have already done it 18 times, so they know for a fact it's going to come out right when they do it. I'm not in that category. This is the first time I have refinished instrument of this class. I have never tried to refinish one that had this razor thin veneer on before. I did refinish a guitar when I was in high school, but it had a traditional plywood top, so there was no danger of going through the veneer. That said, okay, I'm getting my Watco Danish oil out again. Now again, I bought this because the product I was used to using has been discontinued. And I thought, well, if nothing else, I'll try this because it has a high recommendation. If you hear some fluttering in the background while I'm doing this, that's because there's a family of starlings that found their way in the garage years ago. And every year they try to find their way back in. Sometimes they do, and I have to take stronger measures to drive them back out again. Sometimes they don't. So far, they haven't this year, but they're going to keep trying until they give up and nest someplace else. So that said, here goes the Danish oil onto the rag. Whoops, and a lot of other places as well. Okay, and it looks like it's going to take this time, which it did not do before. It may take unevenly because of the various different surfaces in the wood, but it is actually taking. And I'm picking it up off my butcher block where I spilled it as well, so that's my bad. If you never do wood stain, then you never have to worry about staining your workplace or your fingers. But now it's looking like it's taking pretty evenly. There's a few places that are iffy, around the corner here. The sanding was a little difficult in this corner, but it looks like I got it. It looks like I got right into the corner. Try on this edge here. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. And you see the places where I went through have taken about the same color as the rest of the face. It looks kind of primitive. I'm okay with that. I'm going to get another rag and wipe with the tape mess I made on my table. The theory of this Danish oil is that it's supposed to soak into the wood. Okay, this is a rag. It's useless for anything else because it's too fuzzy to use for this kind of project. I want to use it on my table. I don't know if you can see the little mess I made. Yeah, see the mess I made? There it is. That's important. I have to document everything. One of the things that I've learned, I've been doing web pages for hobby sites and everything else since the basically since the 1990s. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that if I show my mistakes, it actually encourages people, because they're like, if this guy can get this, can do this and get away with it, then so can I. This butcher block that is on my homemade workbench was part of a table that I bought from somebody just for the top. So it's already beat to heck. It's got already has soldering iron burns on it and everything else. Now I'm wondering, should I leave this a bit? Now according to the instructions, I'm supposed to leave it on for 15 minutes and then wipe off the excess. And I'm wondering, should I try to get a little more stain on and get it just a little darker before I go into the waiting phase? And the answer is, I'm not going to try. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get a little more stain on it right now, see if it'll take anything else in. Not much. Okay, so I'm going to continue this pass all the way around so that it's as even as possible. And then I will leave it. And I may come back tomorrow and stain again. So the idea is, once this coat has been on for 15 minutes, I'm supposed to take a dry, clean cloth and try to wipe it back off. Again, I will attempt to do that 15 minutes from now. I will not make you wait 15 minutes though, because I'll shut the video off in between, if that's fair. Okay, so far I am not disappointed. It's not as dark as I eventually want it, but at least it's got a nice, you're getting a lot of glare on it, I think. But at least it's getting there, and it's starting to look like it's got some sort of finish on it. So I may leave it at that for 15 minutes and wipe it off. And next time you see me, I may be wearing a t-shirt again. Who knows? Thanks for joining me and being part of the this bizarre process that I entertain for no good reason at all, except that I like fixing up basket case instruments. So I'll see you later. Welcome back. You see I'm still in flannel. Again, it's April in Ohio, and who knows what it's going to be a day from now, but in the meantime, it's a little chilly out here. It's barely 60 degrees, which is warm enough theoretically to spread a coat of polyurethane over the face of my stained and restained mandolin. Now again, I used wanting a hand rub look that was recommended to me to try this Watco Danish oil. I have put this on multiple times. It only gets so dark, and that's all there is to it. It's not a bad color. It's not as dark as I wanted it, but this thing has been on my workbench too long. So I'm going to take a little bit of a water-based poly and try to finish it off and see if I get a good effect from it. Once again, I probably would have, if I had all the time in the world and really was nuts about restoring this instrument to the best possible appearance versus what works for me, I probably would have made another trip to the hardware store and tried to buy some other product. But this was in my basement, and it seems to, it's a product I've used on furniture, and it seems to work there. So this is me spreading it on my mandolin face. Now I won't make you watch the whole thing. It leaves strong brush strokes, as I can see. I'm using a cheap brush because I don't care what it says about cleanup. This stuff always ruins brushes. It's supposed to go with the grain of the wood, which I'm doing nicely. It says I can wait a couple hours. If I'm not satisfied with the surface, I can wait a couple hours, sand it lightly, and try again. I probably will wait an entire day just to see how it comes out. I was trying not to get it too much on the binding. I don't think it'll matter a bit if it does. But in the meantime, this is the, you see it somewhat darkens it. It certainly changes the tone a little. The product is said to go on milky and then turn clear as it dries. That's been my experience in the past with it. Again, this is a furniture solution, not a musical instrument finishing solution. But the truth is, I have actually stained this with the oil stain. I have put the oil stain on it 5 times maybe, and this is as dark as it's going to get. In the meantime, it can only go on in certain temperatures, and because it's been cool a few days, I just skipped it all together. But in the meantime, this thing has sat on my workbench now in one shape or another for about 10 days. And that doesn't mean I haven't been working on other things. This is spring, so I've been working in the garden, I've been working in the yard. I was going to be working in the yard today, but it rained again. So welcome to, like I said, welcome to Ohio. Okay, I think all I'm doing now is brushing it to try to make sure I didn't leave any places on that were just too thick and weird, which is altogether possible. This stuff has some texture to it. So I will leave it at that. It has been treated somewhat. Oh, and look, you can see it almost has a shine to it. That'll go away. This is a satin finish, so it shouldn't have too much of a shine. But in the meantime, I just wanted to make sure I didn't have any places that would look like drips. So that's it for this part of the process. I'm leaving it now, and I'll let you know how it comes out. In the meantime, I am going to be glad for getting this thing off my workbench because I have other projects I would like to start on. All right, I think I've got the finish as good as it's going to get. Just to recap, I used some Watco Danish oil. Needed about 6 coats to get it the way I liked it, to get it even. I did top it off with some water-soluble polyacrylic product it's called from Minwax. I did 2.5 coats. And by that, what I mean is that the first coat I put on, as soon as I saw it on thoroughly, I realized there was a human hair right in the middle of it, and I had to wipe the hair off, and then I wound up just wiping all of the coating off. However, it did leave a tiny bit of a residue on it, which helped. I put on a second coat 2 days ago, and I sanded it lightly this morning and put on a third coat today. And as you can see, it has a little bit of a gleam to it. It's a satin finish, but it has a good feel, and I think it's as good as I'm going to get. So then the next step will be putting all the little things, screwing all the little things back onto it that I took off of it, putting strings on it, and getting it ready to play. But I did want to show you that except for the obvious flaw here, which the strings will camouflage just a little bit, it has at least a tolerable finish on it. The back still has the so-called brown sunburst that it came with, so the edges still have that light coloring. That's okay. I would not have refinished this instrument except for the damage to the face in the first place, and I'm reasonably satisfied with what I've got out of it now. Like I said, once I put the strings on, you probably won't notice the places where I went through the razor thin veneer getting it ready to put together. So the next time you see this, it will have more stuff on it, like maybe even strings. So I will get back to you when that is available. Finally, I've got to the point where these two are presentable in the sense that I've tuned them several times and they're still adjusting. So when I play the little comparison, you may notice some things that aren't quite there. This is the Ibanez M510 that started out with the so-called brown sunburst face that was ruined by a glue job where somebody tried to put a pickup on it. Glued it several times, got glue all over the face, glue that wouldn't come off. I don't know what they used. But at any rate, when it came off, it took off some of the finish, so I just went ahead and sanded the rest of the finish off and refinished it in a so-called dark walnut finish. It looks more like a folk instrument now, and also I left the pick guard off. The original A5s did not have pick guards, and I kind of prefer that look. I struggle with, okay, if you look at this, there's what, 3/4 of an inch between the string and the surface of the instrument. And I don't know how you're strumming or what you think you're doing with the instrument. I cannot imagine why you would ever scratch the face of a mandolin like this with your pick. However, many people have the pick guards there just as a precaution. This is a probably 1900 roundback mandolin built as a student instrument when the mandolin was ridiculously popular. It was far more popular than the guitar and somewhat more popular than the banjo for a while. There were mandolin orchestras, and everybody who was anybody and wanted to learn an instrument just wanted to learn the mandolin. By about 1920, the ukulele and the 4-string tenor banjo had taken over, what we call the Roaring Twenties. You can picture that as the Dixieland banjo and also as the ukulele that supposedly college kids were all learning, and that was the cool instrument of the 1920s. By that time, however, Gibson had started inventing, Lohr had started inventing a arch top mandolin. So you see there's a slight arch to the top, there's a slight arch to the back. The actual Gibson is hand carved solid face. This, of course, is a veneer that looks cool and actually doesn't sound too bad. But by the time Gibson started making these, and of course the F style that had the little fancy curve on this side, by the time Gibson started making these, they become somewhat less popular until Bill Monroe began to use one in his country and bluegrass bands, and invented, in fact, the term bluegrass. And the bluegrass mandolin he started with was an A style. And somewhere around 1940, he got the F style, which is the one with the little curve, and that's the one that everybody relates to as the ideal bluegrass mandolin. That said, you can play bluegrass on any mandolin. It'll sound more like bluegrass, probably if you play it on an A style or F style, than if you play it on a bowlback. And I'll tell you why, and that's because the bowlback emphasizes the high frequency. Remember, this was designed as the soprano voice of ensembles that usually included mandolas and other mid to low pitched instruments. The mandolin was an offshoot of those, and it was a way of saying, hey, let's play something, let's invent an instrument that has a really high cutting edge on it. And so the bowlback mandolin emphasizes the treble, whereas the arch top and arch back mandolins try to have a fuller range. So they have a larger sound chamber, and the crazy fact is these F holes, Lohr, whose first A style banjos had a round hole here, determined that the F hole gave certain kinds of projection that the oval hole did not provide, and that's why we have the violin look to the A style and the F style today. That said, I'm going to do a very quick comparison. Once again, I do not play mandolin, but I will attempt to do the same tune on both of them, just so you can hear the difference in the sound. That's the bass note, that's the low G, and we're going to play Boil the cabbage down, boys, swing the whole cakes round. The only song I ever did sing was boil that cabbage down. Boil that cabbage down, boys, swing the whole cakes round. The only song I ever did sing was boil that cabbage down. Listen to that note. That's the low note on that mandolin. It's the low note on this mandolin too, but you'll notice it sounds entirely different. Hear that difference? Just a fuller range. Boil the cabbage down, boys, swing the whole cakes round. The only song I ever did sing was boil the cabbage down. Boil the cabbage down, boys, swing the whole cakes round. The only song I ever did sing was boil the cabbage down. I just wanted you to hear the fuller tone. This instrument is a student instrument, the same as this other one. This one, ironically, has a solid face, but it's a smaller face, and it does not have despite the deep back, it does not have the sound cavity of the A style. And here's the really funny thing. This instrument is basically plywood. Once again, it's a student instrument. It's Ibanez's least expensive mandolin, the M510. They retail right now at about $160, $170. I got mine a whole lot cheaper than that because it was a basket case when it arrived. But nevertheless, it's a plywood. It's veneer top and bottom. You can even see we're trying to get the sunburst off of the face of this instrument. I actually went through to another layer of wood because the underlying layer, like all good plywood, goes to the opposite direction as the veneer. So it's, to me, it's ironic that this instrument actually has a fuller tone than this 100-year-old instrument with a solid cedar face. But that's just the way, these things were built. They were built to emphasize a treble tone. So in an ensemble where you've got other instruments in the mandola range or a viola range, deeper instruments, this will give you a little extra kick at the high end. That said, if you just want a generic mandolin to play even as a soloist or in a bluegrass band or folk band of any kind, then you probably want an A style or an F style. As I pointed out, even the cheap ones outperform the solid face ones of 100 years ago. That said, I enjoy this instrument, and I will keep it for certain purposes. And I hope that you got something out of my overly long presentation on these. And I will be back later with another instrument. In fact, I have a very strange mandolin I'm working on right now that you may enjoy seeing.